Hi everyone! Today I'm going to make a Your Fancy Floral card using our Mini Wild Floral stamp set and some of our new Couture Collection inks. I'm going to start off by stamping the sentiment Your Fancy, which is from our shoe wardrobe set. After the sentiment is finished, I'm going to start stamping some of the greenery and the ferns from the Mini Wild Floral set. I'm going to stamp them in our Lofty Mint dye ink. This is the lightest shade in our minted collection of inks. I'm going to create 5 different radial points on this card. So I'm going to stamp the different ferns in 5 different spots on this card panel, and I'm going to make sure that the ferns are coming out of those 5 different points, because later I'm going to put some florals over these 5 points. One thing you want to keep in mind is make sure that they're not all going across kind of in a straight line. You want to make it more natural looking and, have some ferns coming out higher than others. You also want to stamp between 3 to 5 ferns or greeneries in each of the 5 points in the Lofty Mint. But make sure you spread it around so that you have some space for the ferns that we're going to stamp in the other green inks. Now that we finished stamping with the Lofty Mint, we're going to switch gears and start stamping with the Bright Emerald, which is the second layering green ink in our minted collection. I'm going to stamp 2 to 3 ferns in Bright Emerald in the open or white areas in each of the 5 points that I've stamped. I'm just mixing and matching the different ferns in the Mini Wild Floral set. This set is pretty versatile because it has all the different greeneries in it. It also has 5 different florals, and you have the option of stamping them in the solid or the outline version. This is a good basic set for you to have in your stash because you can mix and match with other flower stamps that you have. After I've finished stamping about 3 ferns in each of the 5 spots, I'm going to switch gears and start stamping with the Hot Tourmaline green dye ink. Now this is the darkest of the green layering inks. I'm not going to stamp the large ferns in this ink because I don't want to overpower the card. I only want some accents of the Hot Tourmaline in this card. I really love our minted collection couture inks. I wanted some bright green inks, but I didn't want to choose leaf greens for the first base collection. And you can see from this card that the greenery looks beautiful in different shades of mint. Now that I finished stamping all the greenery, I'm going to get ready to heat emboss the outline images of the 5 florals that are within the set. I'm placing the 5 floral stamps in the outline forms onto my acrylic block, but I'm making sure to leave room in between each stamp because I am planning on die cutting these later. And I want to make sure that I'm able to put down the dies on each of the florals in one shot. Since I'm going to be heat embossing these florals, I'm going to ink them up with my Versamark ink, and then I'm going to stamp it down onto my card panel. Now I'm going to spoon some gold glitter embossing powder over the stamped floral images, and the embossing powder is going to stick onto the Versamark ink since Versamark is a sticky ink. After I spoon on the embossing powder onto the images, I'm going to take my heat gun and melt the embossing powder. You want to make sure to heat up your heat gun a few seconds before applying it to your cardstock to avoid warping. This is a general rule. It doesn't really matter here because we are going to be die cutting these flowers. I'm going to start to color in my florals using my zig markers. I put down a light pink, and now I'm going in with a darker pink. I'm going to shade in some areas on the florals, and then I'm going to go back in with my lightest pink to blend that second color in. After that, I'm going to go in with my darkest pink, and I'm going to just add a little tiny bit of shading. I'm going to color in the 5 flowers the same way. The thing with the zigs is you have to work quickly if you want them to blend well together. So just make sure that after you put the first layer down, put the second layer down really quickly and then go over with the first layer, and then it'll blend the 2 colors together. In addition to shading, I also take my darkest zig marker and I put some dots in the center of the flowers to draw in some stamens. After the coloring is finished, I'm going to die cut the flowers with the coordinating dies that are available for purchase separately. I'm going to put down the dies, tape them down with some washi tape, and then run it through my Big Shot. Before I run my zig colored flowers through my Big Shot machine, I usually place a sheet of typing paper over the flowers, but before the top cutting plate, because the zig markers tend to bleed and get on the top of the cutting plate, so that the next time you use your die cut machine, it might stain whatever you're trying to die cut. So this is just something to keep in mind for future reference. After I finished die cutting my flowers, I took some dimensional foam adhesive and I popped up the 5 florals along the 5 radial points on my card panel. Then I trimmed about 1/4 of an inch off the top of my finished panel and about 1/8 of an inch at the bottom of my panel, because I am going to adhere this onto a black card base, and I want some of the black card base to show on my finished card. I probably should have trimmed my card panel prior to adhering the flowers on here, but it was more of an afterthought, and these ideas sometimes come to me as I'm making my card. For my card base, I'm using black cardstock. It's 110 pounds, and I've cut it down to size where it's an A2 size top folding card base. Now I'm going to adhere the panel onto the card base. I'm going to put the adhesive directly on the card base instead of the panel, since the panel holds the popped up flowers. Next, I'm going to finish off with some stamping on the panel. There's a small stamp in the Mini Wall Floral set. It's a cluster of little dots, and I'm just going to take that small stamp and stamp it along the front of the panel, kind of in a random pattern. It's going to look kind of like a spray among the greenery, but I'm going to stamp that in the rose gold pigment ink. Now here's the finished card. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was somewhat labor intensive, but well worth it at the end. Thanks for stopping by, guys.